And in fact, I was with Mr. Dushyant Chawla ji just a few minutes back on another meeting, and he's the Deputy CM of Haryana. So, in fact, I have suggested to some large organizations that it is time that they give some loans to their employees to buy your own bicycle or a motorcycle, or if you want to buy a car, but come safe to the factory. So instead of sitting on huge, hugely packed auto rickshaws, 8, 10 people jammed into one, or shared Ola cabs, or a public bus which could be overloaded. Isn't it time that we go to the China model or the Amsterdam model and say, I ride my bicycle to my workplace with a mask on? So this is important because India, we are at a stage now. In fact, every day the narrative is changing. And I admit that, when I talked to Vinod Malviya ji, and so there was one narrative on the first day, and then it changed the second day, it changes the third day. It is as if the entire Sensex moves almost like the Sensex thing, that on one, I mean, it keeps crashing. And yesterday it was going up because of a few pharma healthcare companies. So my point is that this narrative also is ever evolving. So while many things could have been different a week back or 10 days back, today we are at a time that we are almost on the edge of opening. Today is 10th of April, and we are planning to open on 15th as of now. So, and so it seems that at least a large section of India, almost 50% of India, is going to reopen on 15th. And that is my opinion. At least 50% of India is going to reopen, restart on 15th. And then different other phases may come. So we are at a time when we are talking about restarting. So it's all about preparing to restart. And therefore, my first point would be, how are we preparing to restart? Would there be a peak hour on 15th? Would once again there will be overloaded buses or overloaded auto rickshaws or a Bombay local train or any other public transportation? How would people board a public transportation on 15th? Would everybody rush to the office at 8 p.m., 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. and in the evening leave once again for the jams again in those peak hours? Or can we stagger some of these things? So while, because the government has not taken any call, I leave this thought to business leaders like you. If possible, in your areas, in the same area, you have to decide that this factory opens at 7, this factory opens at 8, and this factory opens at 9. So if you can stagger in your own areas on odd even basis, I think it would help peak hours become decongested, and your people who would be walking into your businesses on 15th, and I hope they don't bring this coronavirus with them. No one knows how someone would, carry when someone starts carrying this virus and hands over to another. And that is what is the craziest thing about this virus. So I believe that it is very important that all of us look at the first day. We have to visualize the scenario, and therefore we have to think about the measures. There are some measures that the government has to take. Of course, there are some measures. Government has to decide what would be their train policy or bus policy. Would they allow overloaded buses, or would a conductor stop people from boarding the bus? And how much pressure we would put on our employees on reaching in time and otherwise marking them absent or marking them late. So these are some things I think all of you are business leaders and you would have your own thoughts there. Even before that, and that is why it's good that we are talking to each other on 10th. Are we in touch with our employees? Do we understand where they are, where they were in these last 21 days? Have they left for Bihar and UP, their hometowns, or are they still around? What is the situation of a contract person? And then do check whether the contractor actually gave salaries for the month of March. Because normally what happens is there are two types of things. People would pay to their contractors and then give, give it a miss, whether they distribute further or not. Let me remind all of us once again that principal employer is responsible ultimately for all such acts of omission and commission. And as of now, the law of the land is very clear, and the law of the land states that you have to pay the salary, and there is no if, there is no I cannot, there is no controversy legally here. You have to pay for all your regular, casual, contractual, temporary employees, regular, temporary, casual, contractual. All employees you have to pay for the month of March. Otherwise, it is taken as an offense under Section 188 of the Disaster Management Act that Honorable Prime Minister invoked on 24th of March. And therefore, it is mandatory under that law to give the salary of March. So make sure that even if you have given money to your contractor, make sure that he is further paid the wages. Let me also remind you that those wages should have been paid electronically, digitally, through a bank transfer. Cash vouchers are not accepted under the law anymore. In fact, disallowed even by the income tax, and it's added back to your own income. So you have to be very, very cautious. This is an unusual time. It is an unprecedented time in our history. And therefore, this is a time that unprecedented measures from the government are expected. And therefore, it is also the time for taking unprecedented arrangements for our factories. And we have to remain compliant. There would be many challenges. Many of the workmen who would have genuinely left you before Holi. Holi was 10th of March. So many of the casual workers would have genuinely left you for their hometowns and gone there for harvesting. And now maybe they come back and they say, you haven't given me wages for March. And so there would be issues. Some of them would come back as late as July, post harvesting and everything, and then come back and they could possibly demand for March and April. So there would be, I'm sure, issues, but idea is that we must try to minimize the arrangements, the issues where such controversies arise. I have a presentation, and I'll come to that presentation, and it'll help me in wisely putting my. Just 1 second, sir. Yeah, बोलो. नहीं हाँ बोलो. हाँ. अभी कुछ नहीं. Then wait, I'll come. All right, Vinodji, is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, I'm sure. I think everything is visible. Please go on, sir.
All right, okay. So friends, I'll quickly come to the presentation because this helps me in giving a sequence to my thoughts. And then, of course, we'll take question answers and go around. This whole program is called the Growth Acceleration Program for Small Businesses. And this restart movement is now a new movement. In fact, some sessions we've already concluded so far, the benefits for small businesses in India, because I mainly take care of small businesses in India and the subsidies that they should get, how they can recover their delayed payments or stuck payments, and how they can raise bank funds, the bank credit, the loans, how they can enter into exports and grow exports. And then the seventh one, I believe it is applicable for everyone. How to detect and prevent inside business frauds and pilferage and losses in a business. This applies actually to every enterprise. the in-house pilferage and the in-house leakages and in-house frauds. In fact, just 2 days back, one of our members, he lost almost 20 lakh rupees because of fraudulent diversion of salaries and wages to different accounts. And this thing recently came to notice. And so you can understand how difficult it is now, at a time like this when the entire police is also busy keeping people inside homes, to reach out to cybercrime, to stop those bank transfers. So it's a huge challenge. And so I just believe that every such case becomes a lesson for all of us. At IMSME of India, that is the philosophy behind. If you ask me, if I've been in business for 30 years, I would have worked only for 5 years. 25 years I've spent trying to find what to do, how to do, where to get a bank fund from, where to sell, how to do export, etc., etc. So the easiest thing today is to help another entrepreneur achieve in 5 years what took me 20. So idea is to share one's own lessons, one's own hardships, and the solutions that we have found on our way. And that is what IMSME of India does, that we share our solutions with each other so that everybody moves faster and we don't reinvent the wheel every time. We don't commit the same mistakes every time. And small businesses have, some rights, some subsidies, because most of you I consider are mid-sized and large-sized, so I'll skip some of these things. But possibly these could be important for your vendors and your supply chains. And if required at any stage, Vinod Bhai can reconnect us, and then we can talk about some of these things for your supply chain people. Preparing to restart is what we are discussing today. And I mentioned the Disaster Management Act is now has been invoked. It is under this act that the lockdown has been announced across India. Businesses are closed, movements are restricted. So many rights that otherwise you and I have in the normal day-to-day life have been taken away from us. And so, for example, right to livelihood has been taken away from you because you have to close your business, ordered closure. And not only ordered closure, you have been asked to continue to pay salaries and wages irrespective. Now, you may or may not have money in your bank account. There could be any tough situation. Your buyer would not be paying you at a time like this. Many of your future orders would have been cancelled. For example, in case of garments and so many other things. And yet, this is the time when government takes your right to work and orders you to pay. So, but then this is an unprecedented situation, and this Disaster Management Act has been invoked only for this. And so at this time, managing cash flow is extremely important. And therefore, when we talk about preparation, let me begin with the first step. The first step, as I was mentioning, was to call and connect with your workforce in advance. Give them confidence that if they come to the enterprise, they'll be safe. Who knows? Maybe they are too scared to work. Maybe their parents disallow them to work. I come at a situation, friends, and allow me to share. It's a proud movement, proud moment. It is also a very scary moment for me. My daughter is a pulmonologist, and she's a doctor in a hospital in Delhi and in Gurgaon. And she is on the front line handling COVID patients. And just yesterday, she had to do surgery on one of the COVID positive patients. So she's on the front line. She's not in the lockdown. In fact, she's working day and night and in much harder conditions, much riskier conditions. And so as a father, on the one hand, I want to encourage her. And on the other hand, I'm as scared myself. So my point is that there could be parents, there could be people who would be asking their children, don't go to work, stay at home, let us wait and watch for one more one. So a lot of workforce may also be a bit shy of coming out to work. So therefore, it is important that we connect with them. Second is that if required, please make some special transport arrangement, give them a call, tell them that if you made some special bus arrangement so that your people don't come in crowded buses, or if possible, stagger your time. Say that we'll open our factory at 6 a.m. or 9 a.m. or 12 noon so that the peak hour is gone. So give some relief to your people so that they come safe and sound. Ultimately, it is your enterprise. And if you want people to come to your enterprise to work, uh, offer them not only safe conditions within your premises, but also en route. And this is very important. Then how what arrangements you make for them for their sanitization, for their disinfection, for masks. For example, in some cities now, mask is mandatory. Delhi, mask is now mandatory. So I need 2.5 crore masks on 15th for people to come out. Of course, not everybody is coming out because schools and colleges are still closed. Housewives would still be at home. But even if 1 crore people come out to work, we need 1 crore masks for Delhi. It is now mandatory. So what would happen is somebody would just wear a handkerchief and temporarily try to protect. But as per law, it is now mandatory to wear a mask in Delhi when someone goes out. In my city, and I'm right now in Faridabad, that is just south of Delhi, it is mandatory since 9 a.m. today, 10th of April, till further orders, it is mandatory to wear a mask before stepping out of the home. So many states in many cities in India would be doing that, and it would need crores and crores of masks. I also dread the situation that till a few months back, we could see polythene and PET bottles littered all over India. Would we see littered masks all over India a couple of days from now when people change the masks and throw somewhere? So these are some new challenges that the world, of course, would see. When people enter your enterprise, what screening arrangement you would have, where they would wash their hands. I especially talk about this to enterprises, manufacturing sector, because for 100 people there could be one small toilet. So I don't know how many times people can go there to wash their hands and other conditions that the Social Security asks for. But it is time for entrepreneurs to make these arrangements long term, because life would be different pre-corona and post-corona. The business times would be very different pre-corona and post-corona. And many of the businesses that were high-end flourishing business, or entertainment business, a cinema hall, a PVR cinema hall, people would love to watch movies on a large screen. People would love to go to a restaurant. Or, unlike Gujarat, we would love to go to a pub also and to a brewery and have a glass of beer in the evening, the Bangalore and the Gurgaon and Mumbai and Delhi. I doubt if people would be going to the pubs and cinema halls and entertainment zones and gaming zones, etc. for a long, long time. What about those businesses? Those businesses, if at all they come up, they would have to come up with entirely different strategies. Same with tourism, same with airlines, same with hotels. If you're not traveling, hotels are not working. Hotels today are only working as the isolation zones, which government has taken over. And there are doctors and COVID positive patients isolation centers there. So how long would it give me confidence to rebook a room in a hotel again and stay there? So it would be a long, long time when things would normalize. And therefore, it is upon the entrepreneurs themselves how they build a culture, or they build an environment, or they create an ecosystem where all the stakeholders feel safe, including the customers and, of course, their own employees. Uh, Casual labor, contractual labor is extremely important. Till now, any day on my factory gate, there would be 10, 15 people waiting. I would, or my HR person would, on the basis of requirement, call some people in for work, and then they go. Similarly, if there is loading, unloading, a crane is coming, often it would happen that we would just engage people on hourly basis or contractual basis from outside. They would come, unload a machine or load a machine, and then go. What would happen now? Uh, do you know who's entering your premise? Let me give you an example. A company called Ceasefire in Noida has been sealed and cases registered against their management just because there were a few visitors in that company who were possibly COVID positive, and but no one knew. Otherwise, they themselves would not have come. But someone possibly was COVID positive, came to their factory, met a few of their people, went away. The infection was carried, and then a few days later, a few more people were found positive. Now the authorities have sent 108 employees in quarantine. The entire company sealed, and an FIR registered against the management for endangering the lives of their workers. This can happen anywhere. It can happen in your enterprise. So who knows who's coming to your factory? Because COVID patient is often asymptomatic, at least for the first 1 week. They are carrying virus, they are transmitting virus, and no one has any idea. And least of all, you or I, who are not screening every employee personally. So there are risks in doing this kind of a business, and therefore it is important for entrepreneurs to understand. Let me also tell you, drinking water, or suppose you are serving tea in your premises twice a day. Now, in what glasses or cups? Do you have sufficient quantities of disposable cups? Because you don't want one glass or one cup someone picks up, hands over to another, and the virus getting transmitted. So one way is, why don't you call your people and say that when they rejoin their duties on 15th, please bring your water bottle from your own home. Please carry your tiffin also from home. And that perhaps you will not allow anyone to go outside even during the lunchtime. Because every time people go out and then they come back, and if it's a lunchtime of 3-4 factories around, you can see how people throng a particular dhaba or a particular vendor for cholas, for something else. So these are some very important things, that minute things that you and I have to understand and ensure proper disposal of such things. Do not, I repeat, do not allow anyone with visible signs of common cold, cough, or something. In India, unfortunately, we have never taken common flu as a disease. So people with cold would normally go to office. They would be sneezing in front of 10 people and say, sorry, excuse me, God bless you. Because sneeze or cold, we have never discouraged such people from coming to office. While one common flu gets passed on to hundreds, one conjunctivitis, the eye flu, gets passed on, transmitted to hundreds. And someone with conjunctivitis with the black shades on would still come to an office. So we have to now enter into an era where we have to stop people, give them sick leave over an SMS. Just one WhatsApp from home that I'm not well and you should sanction them. No questions asked. At least for some time, this kind of a policy would help at least protect and give confidence to a lot of other things. And lastly, within the premises, you should know how to, because now every business establishment is also a biomed waste generator. There are hundreds of masks, getting disposed of every day, or personal protection gear. So how you would be doing that? That is one thing which again would be part of your environmental policies and other things, etc. Let me mention that in fact, you need protection gear. Would you be giving masks to your people? Do you have enough protection gear to give on your gate to people who work inside your factory? For example, we have, for my business, incidentally, because we are into plastics, so we did it. So we have developed this for our factory. And we have decided that every employee who will be coming on 15th or thereafter would be given this mask. It's a complete face shield where they just have to wear this like this, and it is a complete protection from sneeze, from cough, from your own hands touching your eyes, etc. So even if there is some possible infection, now if you want to rub your eyes, at least now you will first wash hands, take it off, and then you do. So give it to your reception area, your security people, the frontline people. At least it's the front line, the first line of protection. And then you can of course wear a mask also with this. That is double protection. So these are very, very basic things. Make arrangements for these things. Otherwise, how would you ensure hygiene and other arrangements for your own factory people? To come to another important thing, that now that you have manpower arrangements, other arrangements, now of course you need money to run, because it is ultimately man, machine, material, method, 4 M's that decide a business. So taking care of man, let's come to now materials, and that is money. So delayed payment now is almost norm of the land. It's universal. There are very large companies like Hero Motocorp, and they have announced that they have invoked the force majeure clause, saying that we may not be able to honor all our contracts. So they are not paying their tier one. So tier one is not going to pay tier two. Tier two will not be able to make payments to tier three. So perhaps the only people safe right now in this entire chain temporarily are the employees. Everybody else in business either gets no payment or late payment or part payment. So it's going to be extremely challenging and for companies, because the situation is that in March you did business only for half a month. In April, in fact, this is a special new year, the special financial year, where from 1st to 14th, not a single invoice has been made in my business and most of our businesses. Unless someone is in essential services business, we have not raised a single invoice so far, because all businesses are closed. So for March, the payment of which normally is due in May, for April, payment of which would normally be due in June. So this means that less sales in March means less payments received in May. Even if my buyers, I suppose, are paying me in time, no sales in April mean no sales in June, no payments in June. So my May and June could be 2 months where inflow is minimal. While it is possible, and God willing, that should be the day when I may have more orders to execute, a new export order or a new company order. So while on one hand, I would be requiring more funds to buy raw materials and other resources, I may have lesser revenue flowing in May, in June. And this is a situation where the cash flow comes. Now, since I'm not an economist or I'm not a chartered accountant, I'm one of those people who learned business only on the streets. Then, for me, this picture is all that I know about cash flow. How much comes in and how much goes out. And all I know is that if my outflow is more than my inflow, then I'm taken for a toss. And therefore, every entrepreneur, the first thing that you have to do is you have to make your own cash flow analysis. Please make a list of payments you will receive in April and you expect to receive in May, depending upon what business you have executed so far. And then make a list of how much is the must-do payment that you have to do. The salary and the wages which the government has mandated, a minimum charge on electricity if you have to pay, or some rental. For example, your company, your office could be on rent, and if you're going to pay that rent. So this is very important for at least for next 2 months, 3 months. You should know this is what is coming to me. This is what I have to give out, and this is the mismatch. Now, based upon this mismatch, is important thing, and I'll. Uh, in fact, before I touch this explanation, I must mention that yesterday I wrote a blog, and that blog has gone viral, and that is now today one of the most moving blogs in the social media, and being tweeted and retweeted across. And what I did was, I remember in my childhood, the black and white era when we used to see movies on TV. And so I remember many of those movies because we could see only one movie a week. So once you see one movie a week, then that movie remains and lasts. So I remember seeing many farmer movies where farmers would be very poor. They would borrow some funds from a zamindar or a money lender, and then pay interest on interest, and that gets compounded. And then suddenly there is some flood or famine. So now they again need more funds. And ultimately, the land of the farmer goes to the zamindar. This is a normal routine story we've seen in many movies, Mother India or Kisan or so many movies. So one such movie, 1953 classic, was made by Vimal Roy. And if you get time, and I mean, you'll never have more time in life, by the way. So if you get time, watch Vimal Roy's Do Bigha Zameen. Do Bigha Zameen. Do Bigha Zameen. It is a 1953 classic of Vimal Roy. Watch this movie. It's a beautiful story of a farmer, and he has only 2 bigha land, and he borrows 65 rupees from a money lender. Now that 65 rupees becomes 235 rupees with compounded interest. Now he cannot pay 235 rupees to take back his 2 bigha zameen. So he leaves his family there and goes to Kolkata and becomes a rickshaw puller, so that he can earn some extra money. His son becomes a thief and starts stealing money. And the father is very upset that the son has become a thief. And with extreme hardships and painful conditions, he collects 235 rupees. And then his wife one day comes to Kolkata looking for a husband and meets with an accident. And then to save her, the farmer has to spend that 235 rupees he had saved on her treatment to save her. And ultimately loses his do bigha zameen. And the end of the movie, he wants to pick up a handful of sand from his land. And a security guard stops him from it. It is no more his land. I believe a similar debt trap has been laid for a lot of businesses in India. And I foresee many such Do Bigha Zameen stories written around entrepreneurs in coming few months. And the reason is that this government has not actually given any relief to businesses. There is no real relief that has come to entrepreneurs from this government till now, out of all the announcements that have been made. And we will discuss those one by one. One, if I mention at this stage, is deferment of EMIs and interest. What is deferment? They are allowing you to pay the March, April, May installment in June. The March, April, May interest in June. Now, what they say is that interest will keep accruing, compounding. So, for these 3 months that you are not paying, they will add it back to your principal and then convert those again into EMIs on interest. So, it is the same Do Bigha story when your 65 rupees become something extra. And at the same time, RBI the other day, made some major announcements. They said we are releasing a liquidity of 1,37,000 crore in the market. See how the money is not reaching your home, by the way. It is the money that they give to banks to lend further. Lend. Now the same bank, now they are flush with funds, so they call up the existing entrepreneur. Existing entrepreneur who's deferring the EMI by 3 months, becoming compounded interest on interest, and they say, sir, at this time, we can enhance your CC limit by 10%. SBI has done that. SIDBI has done that. Some other banks have done that. So they are giving you additional loan at this time. They are deferring the old EMIs and they are offering you additional money so that you can pay this deferred in June. So they're giving you 10% money again on interest. So it's a beautiful debt trap. And they call it relief to an existing entrepreneur who's been with the bank for years, where he or she has mortgaged his home, house, receivables, stocks, everything to the bank. In fact, you ask me, virtually many of us have mortgaged future of our wife and children, our spouses and children with the bank, and that bank gives 10% top-up loan to the same good regular entrepreneur and calls it a relief. So it is an amazing debt trap that I see there. I find the banks absolutely ruthless. They are run only by computers. Gone are the relationship days. And try repaying your loan today. Go to your bank tomorrow and say, sir, I have a car. I don't want to pay EMIs. I want to prepay. Or I have a business loan and I'm selling off my machine, even at a distressed price, or I'm selling a flat at a distressed price and I'm paying you off. A bank like Kotak Mahindra Bank will demand 5.14% as prepayment penalty from you. Because you are not running away with their money to another country, because you are prepaying them, offering to prepay or foreclose your liability, they are demanding a prepayment charge. This is the ruthlessness with which the banks actually operate at a time like this, and they call it a relief. You know what a real relief is? A real relief would have been that the entire time clock of the interest should be halted. Government should say, the way they have told me, Rajiv, close your factory for 1 month. Continue to pay your employees. This is one order that I have. Close your enterprise, pay your employees sitting at home. Period. Why should bank not give similar order to banks? No interest will be chargeable for this much period. You don't pay interest on FD and you don't charge interest of anyone. The interest cycle halts for 2 months, 3 months, so that the cycle also begins once the world reopens. It's almost like a football match. If the ball goes out of the field, the time stops. So that when the ball comes back, they restart again. So it should be a fair game. Why in this time, the only earning money left in the market is that of interest? Just because it is linked to a time cycle, irrespective of flood or earthquake or corona or any other calamity. So this is a question I'm surprised no one has raised so far. No one has tried to answer so far. And I believe it is a pitiful measure that have been employed. And I'll talk about some of those. However, let me now come to the slide which is there on the screen. That if you have a productive, growing business ahead, this does not apply to restaurant owners. They have a dark future. This does not apply to cinema hall people, to a video game parlor, or this does not apply to many other businesses which would still take a long time to start again. But then, if you have some order and you are really looking up, then only then take avail of these deferments and use this deferred payment to fund you in March and April, because at that time your inflow because of the last poor sales would be less, and it would be this deferred payment that would come in handy in the month of March and April. So therefore, you have to decide, every business has to decide the right choice, whether deferment suits their future business orders or not. And let me also suggest that this is actually the scenario of a cash flow. So depending upon how much uh, inflow there is, you have to plan about your outflow. And also, depending upon how much orders that you see ahead, you should be raising funds. Raise funds now only for productive assets, only for productive purposes, and if possible, only for working capital, the genuine working capital. Don't borrow funds to pay past debts. Don't borrow funds to meet with your past liabilities. You will be getting into a debt trap, which would end up in a story like Do Bigha Zameen. Special caution: do not defer high interest loans. It could be a credit card that you would be carrying. It could possibly be a personal loan, unsecured loan at a high rate of interest of 18%, 19%. Please do not defer those. Those are very high rates of interest. And if you start compounding high rates of interest, then the times there could be bad. In the same breath, let me tell you that there could be some loans which would be very low cost. For example, your home loan. It is normally the lowest in India, 8%, 8.25, 8.5. Defer that if possible, because that deferred EMI could possibly come in handy as your working capital. So defer low cost loans, not high cost loans. This is an important slide for every entrepreneur. You may have to consider delaying payments to some of your suppliers. Sounds a bit unethical. I come from the MSME sector, and yet I'm telling some corporates, this is, if Hero MotoCorp can do it, if a lot of government companies do it, Bharatiya Rail does it, defense companies do it, your municipal corporation does it, delayed payment. So maybe at a time, if your CC limits are too limited, you would be tempted to take another 10%, 20% loan. I'm telling you, you would be tempted to take that loan. Banks are pushing you to take that additional 10%, 15% loan. They are deploying their funds in safe hands, because you are a regular account and you and your life and life of your family is already mortgaged with them, even for future. But think 10 times before you raise more funds there. So if possible, maybe you can also invoke a force majeure clause. You can write a letter to all your suppliers that these are unprecedented times and that you are invoking a force majeure clause, and that you may not be able to make some of their payments in time. So if purchase order said 30 days or 45 days, possibly it could be extended to 60 days or 70 days, depends upon you. So, but I would say, do be very sympathetic, empathize with them, talk to them, discuss with them. Maybe you can make them part payment. Maybe you can release 50%, 70%, 60%, or 40% payment to them, so that their cycle also keeps moving. Because ultimately, this cycle is testing the character of each business. It is the test of the national character. And it is also the test of the character of an individual enterprise. It is a test of what metal that brand is actually made of. So if you can take care of your stakeholders, their health, your suppliers, reach out to them, take their help, defer payment after talking to them, For example, your senior employees. In fact, in the end, we'll take some of these questions. Is it mandated to pay full salary to your high paid employees as well? Or can you give, let us say, to a 2 lakh rupees per month employee, can you defer part of his salary or deduct part of his salary? So we'll take some of these questions later. And these salary and payment related questions would be very important that will come. And I would also say that talk to your landlords, invoke force majeure clause there. Write to them that you cannot pay them rent for April and May and June. At least write to them, put it on record. And naturally, they'll talk to you. They'll say, okay, you can pay later. Maybe they'll defer it. Maybe they'll give you some discount. It can be mutually negotiated. But at least safeguard yourself and write a letter to your landlords and demand that no rent be paid. Don't pay for non-essential categories. If you're thinking of renovating your office, something that can possibly be postponed. So identify every expense, and that would help. Remember that you have to save every penny, because this may be all that you have for a long, long time, till the time that the entire business cycle starts. Just yesterday, late at night, at about 11:30 yesterday, I got a call from a very large garment manufacturer. They are in tier 2, and they supply to one very large exporting organization here. And they had made some consignments worth a few crores, supplied something in February. Then because of the international downturn, Europe had got infected much earlier. So they stopped further inwarding. Then they showed that, okay, we'll inward your goods in March. Then March lockdown happened. Now half of the goods they have inwarded. Another half goods are still lying with the supplier. Now the supplier calls me yesterday, middle of the night, and then says, okay, what should I do? And they are neither paying for what they have inwarded. Now they have invoked a cancellation order that they cannot invert. And now all this was, let us say, summer material. And by the time things end up, this summer would be gone. So where would they sell this? So a lot of such challenges. There are people very, very badly stuck, much worse than you and I possibly. There are different people in different situations. Imagine someone who raised the loan in the month of January, set up a great brewery or a bar or a discotheque somewhere, and now public would be shy of entering there. So lots of such businesses, many of the malls with cinema halls. Who would buy cinema halls anymore? At least for a long time now, I'm on Netflix, and I see no reason why I should risk in a closed hall on a public seat, which could be shared by so many other people. So till the time this corona thing actually is waved off, I see that many of these businesses are in terrible times. So remember, it is not always the Nirav Modis whom we suddenly start blaming for all the wrongdoings. It is not always the Nivesh Goyals whom we suddenly start blaming. Sometimes it is the entire business cycle that collapses because of some reason. And these so-called genuine entrepreneurs are being termed as willful defaulters by the banks. And therefore, in coming few months, I see a sad story building up. Then let's see. And let me tell you that you may need some money, whatever cash you have, to restart your businesses. Maybe you need to do some automation. You need to make some better layout arrangements, some extra transport arrangements. Encourage your employees. Give them some loan to buy a bicycle or a motorcycle so that they can come safe and sound. Idea is that you have to treat your employee as your family member now. The way I tell my daughter sitting at my home that, please beta, go to hospital like this and come back, and even though she's a doctor, I am so concerned. So you have to be as concerned with your employees, because if he or she falters somewhere and comes back next day to your office with the virus, then ultimately it is the entire office that suffers. So therefore, some of these things are HR issues, I believe, and need to go there. There are some reliefs, announced by the government. And let me talk about the Provident Fund relief. Oh my God, what a statement the first day when Honorable FM made, and what a pitiful, this piece has come. They said government would bear the cost of the Provident Fund for 3 months, 12% of the employee, 12% of the employer. So 24% the government would pay for 3 months as a relief to the entrepreneurs. Now there are two conditions. Condition one, you should have less than 100 employees. So if you are in a business which is labor intensive, so you're out. Small, medium, large, you're out. How I wish I had an automated business. 100 crore, 500 crore business run only by a handful of people, I would have got this benefit. But just because you are making a matchbox, or maybe a carpet, or maybe a job which is labor intensive, crackers or something, uh, it's a sad story. Second condition that they say is that 90% of your employees should be drawing less than 15,000 rupees per month salary. So it means if you are running a small IT company, if you're running a small courier company, or if you're running a small service enterprise, a consultancy company, and if by any chance 10% of your employees have salary more than 15,000, normally in service sector, many people have more than 15,000. But even if 10%, 11% people, anything more than 10% gets more than 15,000, you will not get this benefit. And the third, very important, in fact, one of my members today in another Zoom session, they raised it to me. They said today they've got an email from their Provident Fund that this benefit will be available only to those enterprises meeting the first two conditions, and they've added a third condition, that all the KYC norms of all the employees must be complete. Otherwise, for February, otherwise they'll not get it for March. Do you know what is the KYC in case of Provident Fund? Now, let us say I have 200 employees or 100 employees working with me. And now the new rule is that I have to take Aadhaar card of every employee and link it to their PF number. So now some of those employees are pretty old employees and you're doing it. So if by any chance you have not done that so far, this benefit will not be accrued to you. So another huge, out of 100 people, even if one person's Aadhaar is not linked, then benefit of the entire EPFO, the entrepreneur loses. Such is the sad state of affair and for EPFO. And for ESI, by the way, no relief. The only relief for ESI is that you get 30 more days to deposit. For Provident Fund, no relief. You have to deposit by 15th of this month. So all entrepreneurs who are not covered in the 24% category of relief of EPFO, you have to pay your Provident Fund by 15th of this month. So prepare yourselves. And for other taxes like GST and all, the government has very benevolently, with a magnanimous heart, government has reduced the rate of interest from 18 to 9. But interest is still chargeable on any delay in GST or other returns that you could be filing. So a very terrible situation there. I have already mentioned to you about the Reserve Bank of India. SIDBI, I believe, has come out with one good scheme, that if you want to enter into any business that helps the nation fight against the COVID-19, so suppose you want to start making masks, or you want to start making sanitizers, or you want to start making ventilators. So anything that helps the nation fight against this war, against Corona, So you can get loan up to 2 crore at 5% for 5 years. So it is for the first time that you are getting a loan at 5%. Loan amount will be up to 2 crore. So it is also the right time if someone is thinking about expanding in this segment. This is the it is called SAFE, SIDB's assistance to facilitate emergency response against corona. I mentioned to you about this debt trap, the do bigha zameen, and that lies ahead of many of us entrepreneurs. I just hope that many of you would not fall into this trap and do worry about the April salary that you are now supposed or mandated to pay by 1st of May. And this is our organization, IMSME of India, and we are also a member organization of CII, and we work very closely with CII here, and sort of a wing representing the MSME sector in India. And imsmeofindia.com is our website. You can also download our mobile app on your Android or on your iOS and keep yourselves updated on many of such things. But CIA itself is an amazing organization that keeps all the information there. So if you are members of CII, then of course you are well connected. What next? That depends entirely upon you and Vinod Bhai. If there is any other topic or any other thing that you would like us to interact or me to interact with all the entrepreneurs, and I keep doing that with on different subjects and topics. So I am available there at your call. Thank you so much, Vinod Bhai, and for everyone. And we can look into the question answers.
Thank you, Rajiv bhai. Thank you. Wonderful. It was a great session. Somin bhai and Runal. So guys, we are open for the question and answer. If you have any specific question related to your industry or you are facing any kind of problem or you want to understand some kind of government scheme about your running industry, please go on.
Let me start today with the first question. It was a very, very informative session, Rajiv sir. Thank you so much for that. And some of your, examples, just opened our eyes. That could be happen anytime. So regarding that topic, I would like to just, acknowledge one thing, that whether you have mentioned about the labor shortage indirectly, correct? If I'm not wrong. So, sir, can you just give us some good idea, like this labor shortage would be in terms of what? In terms of like, for example, there are people who are a member and they are into construction industries, they're into hotel industry, and they're into tourism. So if I start with the construction industry, the basic labor, which is like major of them are migrated. They come from a different state to the Gujarat. So will it be able for them, like, will it be possible for them to, restart after the immediate lockdown to work on the site and come back to the site and, they start working? Is it like, can you just guide me on that?
Okay. See, there are two situations. I think that this labor would be very hard to get at least till July. And there are two, three reasons that I see. One is that normally also, even in normal days, many of this labor would go back to their villages on Holi in March and come back only after harvesting. So all rural festivals and marriages are linked actually to harvesting. So when after Holi, they go back homes, they do harvesting, then they sell their crops, and then they do their marriages, because that is the time they get money. So most of the marriages in Bihar and UP and other places, they take place in April, May season, because that is the harvesting time. And then they come back at the end of June and July. This is the normal thing. It affects every business, especially labor-intensive businesses, and which is dependent upon the migrant labor. This time, migrant labor had two issues. One was that there was a sudden stoppage And at that time, there was a complete breakdown of communication between the entrepreneurs, contractors, and workmen. So entrepreneurs did not assure contractors that what would happen when the project would restart. It was a sudden closure order, and that's it. And that order itself sounded too long, 14th of April, and possible chances of further, etc., etc. So no one gave assurances. Contractors also very typical of them, who would feed the labor, for how many days, where would they stay. They also washed. And that is why you could see thousands of people, and mostly they were from construction. Thousands of people walking on the roads, on highways, walking 600, 700 kilometers, going in, water tanks and milk tanks, hiding like, the war days, and trying to reach home desperately. And then police en route, bashing them, beating them with sticks, inhuman treatment, no food, no water, and only brickbats and lathis from police, and uncertainty, trains cancelled, no buses. In fact, someone called me and said, कि राजीव भैया आप बताइए कि जब if outside India Indians get stuck, then government sends special Air India aircrafts to bring them back. Whether it is a war situation or Syria or Iran or Turkey, you specially send your planes to bring back your friends. And
Right.
here, you cannot run one train or a bus so that I reach my home. So people lost a lot of confidence. Then suddenly there was the order of Ministry of Home Affairs, and they said these people have to be stopped wherever they are. So believe me, because they had to cross through UP and Haryana and Madhya Pradesh and different places. So wherever they were walking, they have been stopped and pushed back into local school or local shelters. So no one knows how they are living their life for the last 15 days. What is their toilet arrangement, what is their eating arrangement, whatever. They have just been stopped wherever they were because the government had to stop this movement on the roads. When the trains restart, you think they'll take the train back to work or back to home? So 21 days stuck somewhere, and when the train or a bus restarts, I think the first thing would be natural step to home. So I believe entrepreneurs have a lot of role. You have to give confidence to your people. And some of us have lost our own people, our own casual workers. Try to win that trust. Give them an SMS, give them a call, tell them कि कुछ राशन चाहिए तो हम भिजवा देते हैं. Things like those. I think these small steps would help. I see labor shortage, acute labor shortage, unemployment on one side, linked with labor shortage. A unique situation when on one hand there is some unemployment, on the other hand there are not many takers for. So this challenge would remain. Let us see. And so I don't have an immediate answer to this, but I think we have to earn the confidence back so that people come back to work.
Right. Thank you, Rajiv sir. Anybody else that would like to, ask some question? Please go ahead.
I had one question.
So,
Rajiv sir, you mentioned that March salaries have to be paid regardless of any, whatever the timeline, doesn't matter, but you have to pay your March salaries regardless. Now, my question is that for the April, can we have a staggered salary payout or must it be paid in full? Can you please guide us on that? Is there a way around it? How do we navigate through the April part?
Okay, if I talk about the law is very clear that you have to pay for all the lockdown days. So March was only 8 or 9 days of lockdown. We have paid, most of us. But April is already 14 days of lockdown. And possibly this lockdown can be extended in some cities or states. Depends. It would be clear by today evening or latest by tomorrow. So lockdown, some states can extend, or maybe some cities For example, Pune could be one city. So whether it is entire Maharashtra or maybe some cities that would do similarly, I'm not sure about my own Faridabad because many of the areas are containment zones now and where the entire movement is restricted. So we still have to wait and watch and go slow. But let me be very clear. Law mandates that you have to pay for all the lockdown days. Now, this is as per law. Let me mention 2-3 things here. Law goes by what is written. So there is a minimum wage act. There is an industrial dispute act. And now that there is a disaster management act. So once the disaster management act has been invoked, it virtually supersedes many other acts across. And giving reference to this act, this order has been passed. Now, if I look at the Minimum Wage Act, it clearly mentions that wage means money paid for the work done. Now, in this period, there is no work done. So there is no wage. At the most, this money should be called compensation. So now, therefore, to circumvent this, to use this anomaly, the ministry order is very specific. They say that during the lockdown days, the workmen would be deemed to be working. So they are deemed to be working. So because they are deemed to be working, you cannot deduct. So this is going by law. Incidentally, in the law, they have mentioned the word wage, the ministry order. So they said that you have to pay the wages in full for the lockdown period, considering them deemed to be working. Now, is wage different from salary? What is a wage and what is a salary? Now, I think here we have a small plus point. In August 2019, Government of India, because they always talk about ease of doing business. So to give us ease of doing business, they said that we'll combine some of the labor laws, and therefore they nullified some acts, made a new act in the parliament, and that is called the Minimum Wage Code. And this wage code that they passed, 4 codes of labor that they said they will pass. So the first was the Minimum Wage Code that enacted a law in the parliament. That was in August 2019. In the new wage code, there is no difference between wage and salary. So now, practically speaking, even a 2 lakh rupees drawing employee can go to a labor court, demanding his or her due or whatever. So everything is related to work now. So there is no difference between wage and salary as per the Minimum Wage Code, which has been passed in the parliament and has also received the presidential assent. However, the only silver lining is that it has till date not been notified, because this had to be notified. So that act has not yet been notified. So even though it has been passed by the government, it has not been notified. And therefore, as on date, that is not applicable. And therefore, if I may say, salaries up to 24,000 rupees you can consider as wages. Above 24,000 rupees could be salaries. In fact, in a state like Haryana, even this does not apply. The reason is that Haryana government 2 years back in 2017, they had removed this 24,000 limit from the wage. So in Haryana, even 1 lakh rupees could be wage if it is given to a worker who's doing a technical job. So here the definition of a staff or a manager is entirely different. Because if you have a tool room person or a generator mechanic, and even if you're giving 70,000 rupees, it is a wage. So, however, even though I'm not very sure about what Gujarat says, but I think your limit still is 24,000 rupees. But you can recheck with a local consultant. So 24,000 rupees, it is a law because MHA order says. For the others, for the salary, but it is subject to confirmation by your local consultant. Do consult them. You can talk to the salaried people, someone drawing 1 lakh or more, defer part of their salary. Maybe give them 60%, defer 40%. And you can use the word deferment and that you could pay in the normal times. And then when they come and join, try to talk to them. After all, parliamentarians also have foregone their 30% salary. I'm sure these people would not like to forego, and there could be confrontations. So maybe you can talk to them and adjust some of their earned leaves, maybe their future casual leaves and sick leave. So practically, there are about 14 earned leaves in a year. There are, let us say, another 14 sick leaves and casual leaves. So almost 28 leaves an employee gets in a year. So if you can talk to them, adjust some of these leaves, from this. So I'm sure a 1 lakh rupees, 2 lakh rupees employee should not be confronting you there and should be okay. It's an HR issue. You have to talk to them. And I believe that if at this stage you find some senior employees saying, no, I must get full, this is what the law is, then let me tell you, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, it is time to identify such people and throw them out at the nearest possible time. Because if they cannot stand by the side of the nation in this hour, how will they ever work, for your company? So it is a test of character of every individual, every enterprise, and let some of these things come out. So salaries, I would say yes. Don't create a confrontation attitude. When they come back, defer. I was telling you the story of my daughter, who is a frontline warrior nowadays, a pulmonologist working in a hospital. And yesterday, she received her salary, which is 70%. 35%, her salary is cut. She is not in a lockdown. She's working day and night. In fact, working more. Her hospital is not in lockdown. Hospital is working. After all, people are paying there for, their treatments. And yet, her hospital has given her 70% salary and deferred 30%. Just writing an email, that rest of the salary we are deferring and for the normal times. So if a doctor's salary can be brutally deferred, I'm sure your and my managers who are sitting at homes, इस महीने तो उनका भी खर्चा कम रहा होगा. They've just they are just sitting at home. So no cinema, no movie, no conveyance bill, not even a public transport, no taxi charge, nothing else. So I think 30%, 40% talk to them, defer their salary, make it, do it.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you.
Sir, we've got similar questions regarding wages from our member Gunjan Sekhani and Pratik Kabra. How to pay the contractors because they are on the daily wages? How do you manage this?
Okay. See, someone says, I want to ask a question regarding contract put on hold under force majeure. Okay, let me tell you, you cannot put a force majeure clause on a wage. They'll auction your house, your property, your factory, liquidate and pay wages first. Even in the Insolvency Act, even if your bank declares you insolvent or files a petition in NCLT and liquidation is ordered, the first thing under the law that has to be paid is the wages and the remuneration to the workmen and their gratuity and their dues. And then will come the secured lenders. So don't talk about force majeure clause with your contractors because you are the principal employer. There are two types of contracts. One contract is that I give you the contract that you build this road. I give you the contract that you clean my premises. That's it. So workmen are yours, raw material is yours, and you are doing it. Such contracts are business contracts, can be cancelled. You can say contract cancelled. You can invoke force majeure, delay their payment. But if you have a contractor who's just taking commission to supply you labor, and that labor comes to your factory, works with your raw materials on your machines, you are the principal employer. The contractor is only a commission agent who finds such people for you. So you have to ensure that contractor pays, and if contractor is not paying, and if such casual labor demands that they were working and that contractor has not paid, you have to pay. You should pay to save your skin from future problems. Pay them, and then maybe later on you can deduct from contractor or find some better contractor. And otherwise also, even normal times, for example, I pay my contractors, but I always demand bank statement of the contractor, how much money that person has actually transferred. I take ESI challan and Provident Fund challan to match names. So people, if there are 100 people in my organization through a contractor, I would check, my HR would check every account to ensure that the money has reached the bank account, because that is the only proof. I don't want a labor coming 2 years later that this contractor has not been paying me, so labor department asks me to pay that person again. So this is otherwise also an industrial practice, and you should be doing that.
Thank you, sir. We
Force
also got
majeure on rent. Sorry, yeah. There's a question I see. Can we delay rent on property on force majeure clause? Yes, yes. You should invoke, and but then don't fight with your landlord. Give him a call. Also, tell him that this is a situation, and ask for a 3-month waiver. Maybe he'll give you 1 month waiver, 2 months discount, something. So settle. I think mutual settlement is the best.
Sir, the continuation of this same question, I would like to further move ahead.
Sir, just one. Someone says in garment industry we have a system of piece rate. So whether it is piece rate, hourly rate, weekly wage, monthly wage, principal employer has to pay. So you have to take care of piece rate person. If piece rate person is not working, pay him the minimum wages applicable on his grade.
Right.
So
just continue the last question that was about the rental. Now you just change the position. If you are the landlord and you are not getting the rent, and at the same time you have that mortgage that property as the LRD lender, like the lease rental discounted on the one of the bank. So now how do move this cycle ahead? Like you are the owner, you are not getting the rent.
you are the factory owner. You are the factory owner. I have ordered you to close your factory, but you are also still paying the bank rate of interest. I am also ordering you to pay labor, your salaries. No business, but pay your interest, pay your labor.
Same thing.
So on a landlord, at least there is no labor. Even if he is paying interest, at least there is no labor. On you, there are two liabilities, labor and interest. On landlord, there is only one liability of interest, if at all. In any case, that landlord, for the first time in his life, you would have been paying rent for years. You would continue to pay for years later. बीच में 2 महीना नहीं मिला तो क्या हो जाएगा? So that is the thought. So I have another question here for essential manufacturing. If the labor doesn't come, do we still have to pay them? Today only, the Gujarat Labor Department has clarified that if there is an essential manufacturing industry, and if you have asked people to come and work, and if they don't come and work, you can mark their absence. Then you don't have to pay. So today only this clarification has come from Gujarat. And that we are circulating to all over India. That look now, so don't pay if you are asking people to come and join and they are not joining.
Any further question, guys?
And there's one more question, I guess, come up.
Okay. What if the force majeure is not mentioned in the contract of rent? Irrespective. Even if your contract is missing some clause, it doesn't mean the clause does not apply. Sometimes your agreements are even against the law of the land. then the agreement itself is invalid. So it is not always the agreement. Agreement has to be within the ambit of the law. So force majeure is within the ambit of the law. And if in case of any natural act of God, calamity, if it cannot be sustained, I think everyone, including the courts, understand.
Thank you. Any more question, guys?
All right. So we are just wrapping up now. So Rajiv sir, thank you so much for the lovely and very informative session today for all the young entrepreneurs of Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industries. As the chairman of Youth Wing, I would like to thank you again to spare some good time with us. And it was a wonderful session. And thank you so much from all of us. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much. My special thanks to Vinod Bhai for connecting us. And whenever I am in Ahmedabad next, I'll get in touch with Vinod Bhai, and maybe then we can have one-to-one meeting. And I'm sure we can do many such sessions in future as well. I'm connected to Vinodji, and whenever Vinodji thinks that there is a topic that we can come and meet again, and I'm sure we'll all find time. Thank you so much, all of you. It's actually a great pleasure to talk to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv.
Thank you so much, Vinod Bhai, also for the great arrangement for the lovely speakers, very brilliant and informative speaker. Thank you from all of us, Vinod Bhai.
Thank you to you.
बोला कि मैं वहाँ पे जाके रहूँगा बोला उसने
To all of us, and thank you, Runal. Thank you, Sonia, and thank you, Nikhil. Actually,
Thank
you
you,
are
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv ji.
Thank you.
Rajiv, with huge round of applause for you. Thank you so much.
You sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rajiv ji.
Thank you so much.
नहीं
Thank you so
नहीं
much.
अपन को तो इन तीन को ही भेजना
Thank
है
you.
उसके अलावा किसी को नहीं भेजना तीन के अलावा
Thank you, Sonia bhai. It was a great
Thank
session.
you, guys. Vinod Bhai, thank you. Special thanks to
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you very much. वो करे
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you everyone.
राजस्थान
We are
चालू है
planning for our
Thank you.
first session
जीत गए थे वहाँ
very
पे
soon, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vinod bhai.
चलो मैं बात करके आपको 10 मिनट में फोन करता हूँ
Thanks to Youth Week team and Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you.
ठीक है ठीक
Well, I can discuss like okay. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
थैंक यू